What's going on, coaches, and welcome back to the Fourth and Goal Vodcast. Today we have Coach Beaman on with us. Coach Beaman has played across all different levels in the triple option, and we'll be talking about all things triple and how the current RPO game is basically just an extension of the triple option. Before we get Coach on, if you guys like this kind of content, be sure to give it a like, share, comment, subscribe. Post in the comments and let us know if there's anything that you'd like seen on this, or if you yourself would like to jump on. Welcome, Coach. Thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Hope all is well.
Oh yeah, all is definitely well. Definitely. Can't complain.
That's it. Well, for our viewers, give them a sort of brief introduction to yourself and your football journey and how you came to be to where you are today.
Okay. Well, just like a lot of other young people, I started playing Pop Warner football at a very young age, and that kind of led to, of course, wanting to compete in high school. Went to a high school that was, not necessarily a football powerhouse, I would say, anything like that, but we were definitely at that particular time. We had a lot of guys on my team that were really dedicated to the game and to the sport. Won't say that we had the best coaching in the world, because we didn't. And I think that a lot of that has to do with just kind of where they were at. It's like there was no real investment in the program the way that it should have been. And it could have been a heck of a lot better. But, you make do with what you have. So played wide receiver for 2 years in high school. And then as my senior year came around, I played quarterback. And the whole quarterback thing was, I was always the backup quarterback at my high school, even though I was playing receiver. Actually, my friend was the actual quarterback at the time. And, we had played all Pop Warner together and stuff like that. So it was cool. I was out there catching balls from him, and that was cool. And our offense was completely kind of different with him at quarterback. Then his senior year, my junior year, we hadn't beaten our rival high school in 5 years. And long story short, he got hurt on like the second or third play of the game and broke his ankle. And so I had to come in and play quarterback with not a whole lot of preparation, because, I had to play quarterback all season, really. Yeah. So like what's the point in preparing for that now? So he goes down after going the game. We beat them for the first time in 5 years. And then, senior year rolls around, and I'm like, well, okay, cool. I hope we find a quarterback, because, I want to play receiver. I don't want to play quarterback. But long story short, my coach is like, listen, we don't have anybody else. So it's either you or, I don't know who it's going to be, and you'll be wasting your time at receiver, because, who's this? You won't have anybody get you the ball. So I said, okay, all right. So we went to more of like an option style offense to kind of suit my skill set. And, we did well. Made it to the city championship that year. And then, we lost 12-6, which sucked. But, just to be there, as a matter of fact, to the same team that we beat the year before. but the team, West Roxbury High School, they were loaded, man. They had a bunch of dudes, man. They had some, like, a lot of dudes that I played Pop Warner with. So I already knew. I was like, these dudes are pretty good, man. So, but we battled, and I knew that we didn't have the same team that we had the year before. So, no sweat. It wasn't the same team. But, we hung in, and we lost 12-6. So, not a bad way to end your high school career, in a city championship game. Okay, we lost, but whatever. And actually, the kid who scored both of their touchdowns is actually a really good friend of mine, too. So, from time to time, when we all get together, it's a bunch of Westie guys and a bunch of, like, guys from Hyde Park that know each other, because we're all friends from, like, the neighborhood or whatever. Yeah. So when we get together, like cookouts and what have you, birthday parties, it's always like, man, get out of here. Get out of here, you guys. Somebody want to hear that West Roxbury crap.
That's it. That's it.
But
I'm sure it reminds you he scored twice on you every time he sees you.
I have to I tell this son, I was like, man, I was like, I don't think you understand how good your father was in high school. You know what I mean? It's like they look at us. We're older now, so they're like, yeah, whatever, you guys. So sometimes it's cool to have somebody who's not related to you, come in that also knows your father too, and then say, look, your dad was a bad man. Like make no mistake about it. And it's always cool to like share those stories with people because as guys get older, body types change. Like some dudes are a little bit more round than they used to be, and people can't even like see them as this like stud running back or stud linebacker. They're like, him? They're like, yeah. Yeah, man, believe it or not, like once upon a time that dude was built like a truck. And it was some serious business. So long story short, when it came time to go to school, I had some attention from a lot of places, but I decided that I wanted to play quarterback. Like, okay, move on. I want to play quarterback. Okay. But I had to find a situation that was best suited for my skills. I wasn't going to try to stretch my ability and have them move me to another position anyway. Like, okay, you came here as a quarterback, but, you're not the pocket guy. So, go play receiver or defensive back or running back. I didn't want to do that. So some things happened on the recruiting trail that my mother, more or less, was orchestrating. I decided that I was going to go, to prep school for a year and and open the recruiting and stuff back up, get another season at quarterback, whatever. That was not her plan. She was like, no, we're not doing that because your grades are good enough for you to go to college right now. And we're not doing this football thing for the sake of football.
Yep.
So all the folks who had given me opportunities, I had already told them like, look, I'm going to go to prep school and do this thing, yada, yada, yada. So, when you say no, people don't wait around for you. It's like, thanks, but they got another guy's name right beneath yours. So if you say no, they just scratch you off the list and keep calling the next guy. And Absolutely. So, it happens like that. And that's the reality of recruiting, right? So, which was much different at that time than it is now. Now it's, 7-on-7 tournaments, kids getting offers and things like that before they even put pads on ever at the high school, which I don't condone or agree with at all. We can get into some of that later too if you like. My position on recruiting process and all that stuff that goes on with, putting 30,000 hats on a table. It's disrespectful to the school has invested time, energy, and their resources in recruiting you. And you don't have to disrespect the team just because you don't want to go to their school. Like, I understand why you do it. It's cute. It's fun, but this trend has gotten out of hand, and to the point where it's become downright disrespectful. And actually, what if you end up at a school in that same conference? People don't forget those things.
No.
At all. People will hold a grudge, trust me. So I ended up looking at schools close by, not too far away in Connecticut. And there was one school that ran the Wishbone. And they were calling all the time, like during all this process of me trying to figure everything out. So I said, you know what? I want to play quarterback in an offense where I can have, where it fits my skill set. So, you know what? Okay, I'm going to go here. And when I got there, I'd never ran the wishbone before. It was like we did more eye option stuff out of the I formation. We didn't really do true reads. It was more like predetermined stuff. Like you run, you play, coach calls a dive, and then you bring it out, pull the ball automatically. So it's more double option than it is anything triple.
Yep.
So just trying to get people to suck up on the fake, and make it happen like that. So, getting there, you had to learn.
Mm-hmm.
So learning the offense really, because I was an Oklahoma fan, of the wishbone anyway. Like,
Mm-hmm.
option football as a college football fan was like I was searching for like option teams, and at once upon a time you didn't have to search because everybody was running the same thing or something similar. So like you watch Oklahoma, Nebraska, you're like, okay, this is the best of both worlds because I get to see that Nebraska option, that I option that they run, and I
Yep.
get to watch this wishbone that Oklahoma runs, and I'm like, okay, this is gonna be an awesome day, you know. And, and then just watching the offense and everything, and then watching these guys like Jamel Holloway, watching Turner Gill, watching D Dowis from Air Force at the time, just watching guys like that, and it's just like, wow, man, this offense is beautiful. Like
Mm-hmm.
I'm honored to have the opportunity to play in it. So, went to school, learned the wishbone and everything, and it just became like this offense that I actually really honestly started to believe in
Mm-hmm.
wholeheartedly. It's a team oriented offense. Even though as the quarterback you're making decisions, it's still a team oriented offense because whatever the read is, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever's supposed to get the ball theoretically should get the ball,
Yep.
based on whatever front we're playing against. So I really fell in love with it, and I had a good time, and I brought like a level of speed to the game, a level of finesse to the game, but
Mm-hmm.
I also wanted to like have power and make people afraid to tackle me.
Mm-hmm.
Now I wasn't the biggest guy in the world at that time either. Coming out of high school, I was a whopping 155 pounds. Not very intimidating.
Dope.
At one point, like when my freshman year of high school, I could still make the weight for Pop Warner. You know what I mean? So, by still like 20 something pounds, too, it wasn't like, oh, it was close. Like the weight limit, I think was 135 pounds for the A team at that time,
Mm-hmm.
and I was weighing 115 pounds as a freshman. So I still had 20 pounds, that I could give and still wouldn't be overweight to Pop Warner. Wow, So it was really something else. But I just wanted to bring a level of physicality to it. So hit the weight room and everything like that, and we had a quarterback before me, this gentleman by the name of Wade Miller. Wade was the starter when I got there, and we formed a really cool friendship. And I owe everything in terms of knowing the ins and outs of that offense to him
Mm-hmm.
because he wasn't intimidated by my presence. He saw something in me that he saw in himself, so he was willing to help.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was like, when I get out of here, this dude is gonna be that guy. Because I can see it.
Yeah.
We have a similar style of play. He wasn't as big. I think Wade was probably all of 175, 180 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
But he was smooth running, like making reads and things like that. Just a wizard with the ball in his hand.
Yep.
So I just, soaked it all up, man. Just like spent time with him, learning, and then playing in the offense was just, was phenomenal. I just felt free. I felt like, okay, this is the offense for me. I never claimed to be a drop back passing quarterback, never
Mm-hmm.
claimed to be a guy who wants to be in the pocket, standing still, being a stationary target. That's not who I am as
Mm-hmm.
a player. So this offense suited me. And then the whole team aspect, how you're dependent on other people to do their job in
Mm-hmm.
terms so you can do yours. So that's uh, kind of like my option journey and how I got into doing that. And then moving on from there, I played semi professionally after college for the Boston Bandits in the New England Football League.
Mm-hmm.
And we brought a level of option football to the program too. The only problem with that was, when you're the only one who really understands the ins and outs of something,
Mm-hmm.
I'm coaching, but I'm playing at the
Yep.
same time. And then there were people that felt like, oh, we should be doing this and we should be doing that, that keep up with the Joneses kind of stuff.
Yep.
You know, establish an identity for yourself and stay with and stick to that. And bring people into the fold that can enhance what we're doing, not go against what we're doing. You know what I mean? So a lot of people don't believe in option football. Everybody, believes in Johnny come lately stuff, and you know, so the same thing in the semi-pro level. We were good and things like that, but my skill set was what it was. Um, I never claimed to be a guy who wants to drop back 5 steps, 7 steps,
Mm-hmm.
3 steps, and just hang back there and throw the ball. No, I'd rather make a read and then embarrass you. you know, on the edge, either faking a pitch or some kind of fake pitch and a spin move back inside. Those kinds of things. Safety coming across, cut across the field on him. That kind of stuff. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and enjoy myself. And I
Yeah.
really had a good time playing in that offense. Really understood, really developed and understood what we were trying to do, and against what fronts what we were trying to do. Just
Mm-hmm.
inside beer, outside beer. Okay, against certain fronts, inside beer is the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
Because they're taking away outside beer. Okay, if they take away that, okay, fine, we can go midline. Fine,
Yep.
we can do that too. All right, they're taking away middle. Oh, counter option. Okay, no problem. So
Yep.
these are all things that became like second nature to me. So when I became a coach, that's kind of like what where I was leaning towards. Which
Yep.
coaching was never part of the plan for me. Not even I never even thought about coaching ever. No, not until a good friend of mine was. Matter of fact, same guy played football in high school. Our quarterback before me, my man Mike. He was coaching a local Pop Warner team. And he was like, "Man, B, if you have time, you should come down, check it out." I was like, "Man, I'm still playing semi-pro right now. I don't know if I have time for all this and that." I said, then I kept thinking like, I don't even really want to coach. Like, it's not even what I'm into. Based on my experiences, there are a lot of jerks who coach, and that was my experience. So I was like, I don't want to be like them.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's all that kept ringing in my head was like, oh my God, am I gonna be like them? Like if I go out here, am I gonna be like them? Am I gonna be like them? And then there's some things that you learn and you understand better as you get older.
Mm-hmm.
At the time you're like, this dude's a jerk. But I understand that at that time, when you have talent, sometimes you don't work as hard
Mm-hmm.
because you are that much better than other people with little or no effort, really.
Yeah.
So it's you're like, what motivates you to get better? What
Mm-hmm.
motivates you to get in the weight room? What motivates you to get out there and run and train and do the things that you need to do? What motivates you to get in the film room and actually spend more time really understanding defensive fronts and coverages and things like that?
Yep.
So definitely just adopted that whole kind of philosophy and really started to understand that, in some cases they were just being jerks, but then there were some instances where what they said actually had some validity. Okay. So in terms of training, yes. Uh, but valid all day long, in terms of training, but a lot of the other stuff, I was like, nah, you don't have to belittle people. You
No.
don't have to call them everything but a child of God, to get your point across,
Yep.
especially when you're dealing with 18, 19, 20, and 21-year olds.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, the frontal lobe, where we
Yes.
start making decisions and control our impulses, it's not fully developed. So
Correct.
coming from an urban setting and then going to like almost like it was a kind of a city in Connecticut, but it was not. It was a small, kind of
Mm.
sleepy kind of town, but to some consider it, a city or whatever. Okay, but for me, it was like going to the country, um, and so that was an adjustment.
Uh-huh.
Number
I
one,
bet.
coming from urban inner city Boston to where majority of the people that I'm around were black people,
Yes.
and then going to Connecticut and the majority of the people are now white people. Okay, cool, no big deal. But of course, an adjustment.
Yep.
I I wasn't used to looking out my window and seeing like a family of deer just hanging out. you know,
Yep.
that wasn't my experience. So first I'm like, where am I? You know,
Yep.
where did how did I get from Mattapan, Massachusetts to here? you know, but long story short, I met some really great people at school, and a lot of good friends still to this day. And we all talk about, when we get together or talk, it's always like, man, remember those days like in camp and practice and getting up at 5 o'clock in the morning during the springtime and in the gym by 5:30. No, in the gym by 5:15, dressed and outside doing stuff by 5:30. You remember those times,
Yeah.
And it's cool to look back on it now. The school no longer runs the triple option. They're pretty much a zone read team, RPO kind of team, which is just triple option football too. It's like, okay, just because you have a pass involved doesn't mean you're not reading 3 levels of what's going on. If you're reading 3 levels, it's triple option football. 1, to the running back. 2, if nobody takes the quarterback, if that surface defender runs with that receiver, we are supposed to replace him. Yes. So okay. That is triple option football. They just hate to give it up because they don't want to admit that, like, oh, we're really doing triple option football. We're just gonna call it RPO, run pass option. Option being the operative word. Option. Option meaning what? The option to do something else. Just because you're throwing it forward and not pitching it back, it's the same thing.
Exactly.
And then when you start making, you have these really like hardcore RPO guys that are like, no, it's not triple option football. It's just something different. Call it what you want. Yep. If there was no such thing as the wishbone, there would be no flex bone. Yep. If there was no flex bone, there would be no zone read options. Yep. The blocking scheme is the same. Like, how can you say what it's not when you're double teaming at the point of attack and reading? It's the same thing.
Yep.
But somebody, I have the RPO. No, you have triple option football, dude. Okay. Yep. And your RPO is only as good as the person reading for you. So if you have a quarterback who cannot master the RPO read, you're wasting your time. Because you're not going to be successful doing it. You're not fooling anybody because we know he can't throw the ball to save his life. So like who do you really think that you're fooling? You're fooling yourself. You're trying to make something work that you don't have the personnel to do that with.
Exactly.
Which is why, we ran when I was a head coach at the Jeremiah Burke High School in Dorchester, Mass. That's why we ran triple option football. Number one, we didn't have a whole gang of players. We didn't have 50, 60, 70 kids on the team. I think the most kids we had on the team while I was there was maybe 40.
Okay.
Okay. And out of that 40, maybe only 10 real football players. So we have to give them something that they can feel confident doing. Okay, you're not a great one-on-one blocker. Don't worry, I have help.
Yes.
Don't worry. We're not going to make this complicated. You have help. All you have to do, block down, double team at the point of attack, and then get up to second level and basically set a screen equivalent of what you would do in basketball.
Yep.
All you need to do is get in the way. You don't have to be. It doesn't have to be a bone-crushing block. Just get in the way. So we had a bunch of smaller lineman type kids who weren't, they weren't strong kids like that, but they were quick enough to make these things happen. So that's why we ran it, man. It was we have athletes that can play quarterback. We have athletes that can play running back and B back or fullback. We don't have 4 or 5 receivers to catch the ball anyway. So what are we going to drop back and go 4 or 5 wide when we're fooling ourselves? We have maybe one kid who can catch the ball consistently, and everybody else is just out there for window dressing. You throw it out there, it's okay, maybe he might catch it. It's not like you're calling that play with any confidence because he's not going to catch it because he never catches it. So we decided to, run triple, and that's when everything kind of changed. Like at my first year, we were in an I formation because, we got kind of started a little late. It was just easier to
Yeah.
teach basics
Yep.
than it was to talk about the complexities of making a read and everything like that. Because in order for triple option football to work, you have to truly read it.
Yep.
Like you can go double option. Yeah, you can do those things, but only after you've established that we run triple. Because now it's like double option, but hey, you're still putting the ball in the fullback's belly, not as long as you would on the regular read, but still just the threat of that guy running the ball means somebody's going to suck up. And we're talking about high school football players, man. Guys want to make tackles, and high school football players, college football players, pro football players, everybody wants to make a play, right?
Yep.
So why not use that aggressive nature against them? I know you want to make a play. I'm going to make you sit here and read. Is what I'm going to make you do. I'm going to dictate to you what you're going to do defensively.
Yep.
So, okay, you can blitz and do all that stuff if you want to. Okay, we can pick up the blitz, and if it's the wrong situation, you're beat, and it's a touchdown.
Yep.
Plain and simple. So that's what we did, and fortunately for us, we had the first year we had a kid who really did a great job of making the reads, and making decisions, even though it was his first year ever playing triple option quarterback, And I told him, I said, listen, I'm going to tell you like this. This is not going to be easy at all. I said, number one, I ran this offense.
Yeah.
So I'm going to coach you different. I'm going to coach you the way that I need you to play quarterback for me.
Yep.
With a level of physicality when necessary. We run. Here's my philosophy. You run away from linebackers and defensive linemen. They're bigger than us. It doesn't make any sense. I'm not going to win that battle. Defensive backs, anybody in the secondary, oh, yeah, you can get that. No question about it. You come up like you want to try to hurt something, okay. If I'm 195 pounds to 200 pounds and you're 195 pounds to 200 pounds, oh, that's a nice collision right there. I like the odds of that, And in some cases, you might be 10 to 15 pounds lighter than me. You could be 175 pound defensive back.
Yep.
I'm at 190. Okay, I'm going to make you feel it.
Yep.
First of all, you don't want to make tackles anyway. You don't. No. That's not what you're out there to do. And that's not what you're not out there to do. So since I know that already, I'm going to take advantage of that. Yep. So by the third quarter, you're not coming up as strong in run support like you were in the first and second quarter. That this kid Beaman is coming and he keeps running at me. He's not trying to run away from me. He's running through me. And every time he does that, I'm getting the bad end of that. So now you got dudes stepping aside trying to grab your jersey. That's when you put a move on them and take off. Now I'm gone. See you later. Bye-bye. It's all part of the game. And it's not unlike, a Michael Jordan being dialed in or Kobe Bryant being dialed in to your ability. Like really being dialed in those moments. Like, okay, first of all, I practice moves. Like, I don't know about everybody else, but I would put cones out on the field.
Yep.
Go through my progressions, my reads, and then, put my foot in the ground, do a little head and shoulder fake here, spin move there. So it becomes second nature when you get in the game. When you see that, it's not a forced thing. You ever see somebody try to spin and they don't know how to spin and they get killed? It happens all the time, right?
Yep.
They just get murdered because they don't know how to make that spin move work. Like Lamar Jackson this year when he just put the spin move on the entire Cincinnati Bengals defense, and they didn't know what to do with that. My God, we've never seen anything like that in the NFL. No, you haven't, and neither have we. But that was sweet. Can you run that highlight? Rewind. I need to see the replay because that was something that was unbelievable. We haven't seen this since Michael Vick. And it's like, ooh, we didn't know that somebody was coming after Vick. But to really take it to the next level.
Exactly.
Vick was a bad man. But then Lamar Jackson comes along, and Michael Vick is like, wow, he's faster than me.
Yep.
He's better than me. you know,
Mm-hmm.
um, not I wouldn't say that Lamar's arm is strong as Mike's because Mike had a cannon. You
Yep.
know, but I think if Mike had spent a little bit more time early on in the playbook and really dedicated himself to the game, I think his career goes completely different.
Mm.
I think there might even been a Super Bowl, in the cards for
Yeah.
them. Because the Falcons were getting better before all that foolishness went down with the dogs. You
Mm-hmm.
know, before all that happened, he was well on his way to a pretty dope career. But
Yeah.
sometimes you need something to happen to slow you down, to get you to think about things differently. And
Mm.
suffice it to say, he came back, man,
Yeah.
and was just as good, if not better, because he's a complete quarterback at that point.
Mm-hmm.
And bless the Philadelphia Eagles for giving him an opportunity to do so.
Yep.
But this whole idea of the athlete playing quarterback is the new wave. You can't have athletes on defense and you got to stick in the mud playing quarterback.
No. No. Not
First
at
of
all.
all, you can't even have offensive linemen that aren't athletic anymore.
Mm.
Because they have to block these really athletic people.
Yep.
And if they can't block for you, then you're a sitting duck back there. Okay? And nobody wants to just be a tackling dummy back there playing quarterback. They've made things safer, but it's still dangerous. Playing back there. You're standing back there. You don't know who's coming from backside or anything like that. You don't have eyes in the back of your head,
Yep.
and things happen. So if the NFL has learned anything, especially within the last couple of years, you had a mobile quarterback in Patrick Mahomes, who was the NFL MVP the year before.
Mm-hmm.
Then you had Lamar Jackson as the NFL MVP this year. And then Patrick Mahomes is the MVP of the Super Bowl this year. So it's like, okay, have you noticed the trend here?
Yep. Yep.
You're gonna need these kinds of things. So option football has been a blessing for me, and it was an honor and a privilege to teach the kids at my school this wonderful, beautiful offense and get them to understand that we don't have to have a lot of plays. They're like, Coach, where's the playbook? I don't have a playbook. Playbook? Well, no, I'm not giving you a playbook to leave on the bus or to leave somewhere and then everybody knows what we do. No. Oh, you can have the formations.
Yeah.
Because I don't care if you know what we're lined up in. You don't know what we're doing out of it. So this piece of paper with formations on it, it really does nothing for you. Because nothing else is written on the paper except the formation.
Yep.
I said, this is what you're responsible to learn. The formation. We literally had 12 plays.
Yes.
But so we had literally maybe 12, maybe 15 plays tops.
Mm-hmm.
And they were all the kids were Coach, is that it? It's plenty. Trust me. We have 3 options every play.
Yep.
They can't defend all 3. So so we are good if we learn how to execute these 15 plays.
Mm-hmm.
We're good. I feel good about going into a game because shoot, no matter what they do, we have an answer for it. So if that's multiple formations and 15 plays, that's what we're gonna do, and that's what we did. We had multiple formations because if it looks different, people assume you're doing something different, and we spread people out. Now, we ain't throwing the ball yet, but why you're going to run out there and cover receivers when all I'm trying to do is to open up the middle of the field for my fullback? That's all. I have no intentions on throwing the ball out there, not even a little bit. And then we had, couple of years, we had some guys on the outside who could actually catch the ball. So, we incorporated a lot of more, screen game, tunnel screens, all those things like that. We ran toss, and then we did some things that traditional people do, but, just out of multiple formations, and they weren't expecting us. If they saw us do something that they didn't see us do before, then it's like, oh, what are they doing? They assume they need to cover this and cover that, but it was all just smoke and mirrors, really. It was like,
Yeah.
nope, no, because if you really look at who's out there, like, do you really think that I'm gonna throw him the ball? Like look at who's out there, But like I said, there were times when we did have quality people out there, and you better cover somebody, or it's a touchdown.
Mm-hmm.
So all the quarterbacks that we had were pretty good athletes. Some better passers than others.
Yep.
Probably the best athlete that we had was a young man by the name of Patrick Colbreth.
Mm-hmm.
Patrick was just a different individual, period. Just, load of athleticism. When he was first coming on to the team, we had gone to a football camp, and he was like, Coach, I said, well, have you thought about what position you want to play? And he's like, yeah, I want to play running back. And I was like, not in this offense, you don't. You want to play quarterback.
Yeah.
I said, trust me on this. I said, we have people that can run the ball. I said, I want the ball in your hands every single play, because if you are the athlete that I believe you are, I said, you're going to be like, so glad Coach put me at quarterback. So, needless to say, first year that he played quarterback for us, the first play of our very first game, 60 yards for a touchdown.
Oh, God.
And I was like, okay, this is going to be a special time. Because, to have a guy with breakaway speed like that, who wasn't going to get caught from behind and had moves too, it was unbelievable. The stuff that he was doing, out there. You know what I mean? The only problem was a lot of people started to just depend on the Patrick show and, get caught up watching instead of doing their job, those kinds of things. And because he was such a phenomenal athlete, and he knew that everybody else wasn't even on par with where he was, he didn't trust them, at first. So I'm like, dude, you keep getting killed back there sometimes because you refuse to give up the ball. Give up the ball. Trust me. Your teammates want to support you, but if you don't give the ball up when you should give the ball up, they're not going to be there for you in the end.
Yep.
So that took a little while for him to get acclimated to that, and then all of a sudden, he started pitching the ball and giving the ball on the dive, and I said, do you see the difference? I said, because once we establish one thing, they're going to try to take that thing away from us, and then that opens you up. Once they take away you, it opens up the halfback again. You know what I mean? So it's like, if we have all three phases working, it's going to be more complicated for them to stop us. So, and at that point, it just became really, really, really easy to do it, and then just going down to the Naval Academy for their coaches clinic. I'm really talking with Coach Ivan Jasper about, his philosophy, how is he developing the quarterbacks, getting drills from him. Really just a phenomenal dude, man. Like, some college coaches, and I hate to say it like this, some college coaches, chest puffed out, I'm the coach of the national champion, whoever. Well, dude, like, okay, and we're just merely high school coaches trying to learn something. I get that, but like, the arrogance is like, is not even necessary.
No.
Navy's football staff, from head coach down to the dude cleaning the facility, was amazing. I have never been to a coaching clinic where the team is practicing and we were almost in the huddle with them.
Wow.
Yeah, like he's Coach Jasper is coaching, and he's like, you can ask me questions during this session.
Yeah.
Like, as I'm calling plays, as we're doing things, I step out of the huddle. You have a question, just ask me, and I'll tell you what we're doing, and I'll tell you why we're doing it, and things like that. So it was like a really phenomenal experience because I'm like, wow, I'm getting like really close
Yeah.
to like the guy. Like at that point, Navy could do no wrong in terms of their rushing game.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was like, okay, if I'm gonna go anywhere and learn more,
Mhm.
I'm going to the best, what I
Yeah.
consider to be the best.
Mhm.
And not that Army isn't good because they are good. They have they run phenomenal option game too. I mean they do they run a phenomenal option game. Air Force does too.
Mhm.
Um, and I heard that the Citadel runs an awesome clinic too. So I'm trying to get to South Carolina at some point because I want to go down. First of all, Charleston is a great city to visit. Um, let's start there, and then the bonus is I get to go to a
Right.
coaching clinic here too, make a whole weekend out of it. You know what I mean? So might even go a couple of days early just to enjoy Charleston before we get into the meat and potatoes of the thing, of the clinic. But I heard that they put on a really good show, so
Yep.
I want to make it down there. So I went down to Navy like 3 years in a row.
Wow. Yep.
That's how much fun I was having.
Mhm.
I was like, and over time you start to develop a relationship with people because you keep coming back.
Yep.
And just the access that they gave us, we got to go over to Army, like Navy Marine Corps Stadium, and check out the stadium. Then let's
Wow.
walk on the grass and do all that, take as many pictures as we wanted to. Just the access to, you know, film and
Mhm.
things like that. Like if you wanted cut ups, you could just email Coach Jasper and tell him what it is that you're looking for,
Wow.
and he'd send it. Just a really, really, really solid dude.
Mhm.
Just really, really solid. And then when he told me that one year they played, that I forget the year that I was there, that he said this, but that year they had beaten Army pretty good.
Mhm.
Uh, and he was like, he said, we only called 4 plays that entire game.
Wow.
What? Okay, I'm thinking, okay, that's cool. At my high school, we only had 15 plays, so like that kind of fits right into like my philosophy right there. But when he said 4 plays, I was like, four? He was like, four. He was
Wow.
like, he said we ran inside veer. He said, he said we ran midline. He said we ran trap and like QB follow the entire game.
Right.
He was like, we dressed it up, made it look different. He was like, but 4 plays. He
Wow.
said that's it. He said if you go back and look at that film, he said and really look at it, he said you'll notice that Keenan was running QB follow 90% of the time,
That's what happens
and
when
that
you
was
got the man.
and that's a killer play too, man. Jesus
Yep.
Christ, is follow is nasty. We ran a lot of follow too. And it's like yeah, go. you know, we run into the middle of the field, goal line, whatever it was. It was like we were doing it. So
Yep.
it's just a matter of teaching the kids to read and getting them to understand what you're trying to do in terms of your offensive philosophy. And we
Mhm.
really needed something that was going to unify us as a program and give us an identity.
Yep.
Like, okay, that's the Burke. They're the wishbone triple option guys,
Mhm.
because we used to flex it out too, with formations. But then my last couple of years, we didn't have guys that we could flex it out with like that. So we brought the bone back in. It was like 2 wide receivers. We didn't bring in tight ends,
Yep.
because I don't use a tight end like that,
Yep.
and hey, whatever. I just didn't do it.
Yep.
So we just ran full house wishbone. We
Mhm.
ran counter, we ran trap, we ran crossbuck, we ran everything that we could possibly run out of the formation because hey,
Yeah.
we had an identity. This is what we do, and that's that. And we never wavered, no matter what the situation was,
Mhm.
because it's a commitment to a scheme, and it kind of fit in with our whole uh, team approach of building relationships with each other,
Mhm.
going a little bit further than like surface level relationships,
Yep.
getting in and really knowing where each other's coming from. Like,
Mm-hmm.
okay, for example, you could be from Australia, but I don't know anything about being from Australia. So, in order for me to learn about your culture, I have to ask questions,
Yes.
right? And it can't be like, okay, your name is Josh. All right, hey Josh. No, it's like, okay, where did your family originate from?
Mm-hmm.
Were they all was everybody born and raised in Australia, or
Mm-hmm.
did you come from somewhere else?
Yeah.
And then settled in Australia. We want to know your journey. We want to know how you got to where you are. How did you make it to Dorchester, Massachusetts? What's
Mm-hmm.
your journey?
Yep.
What's your family's journey? Whether it's if it started with your grandparents, we want to go all the way back there. You
Mm-hmm.
know, why did your grandparents leave Haiti to come to America?
Yep.
Oh, well, they left, because they wanted us to have a better opportunity. Okay, hold that. Better opportunity. So, do you think that when you come to school and you're getting into fights and getting suspended from school, is that really honoring that, like, opportunity?
Yeah.
No. Okay, that's what I need you to start thinking about. I
Yep.
need you to start thinking about why people sacrificed everything they knew. Now, remember, your family was in a country where they spoke the language, they knew everything inside and out, to uproot themselves to come to a country where people treated them less than kind,
Mm-hmm.
right? Didn't speak the language
Yep.
or anything like that for an opportunity for you. Think about that.
Yep.
So you owe them a debt of gratitude for doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Some people were going to school in countries where they had to pay to go to school. Education is free here in America. They made that sacrifice for you.
Yep.
So when you come to school and you get in trouble and you're doing all this other stuff outside of what your family came here for, you're disrespecting your family's legacy, plain and
Mm-hmm.
simple.
Yep.
So that's where we were coming from in terms of a cultural identity. Everybody really understanding and appreciating the journey.
Mm-hmm.
And once kids started to talk and started to open up, you start finding out a lot of different things.
Yep.
Oh, yeah, my dad's not in the house either, or mine either. Okay, guess what? You have a lot in common. You know what it's like to live in a single parent household. You
Mm-hmm.
have more in common than what makes you different. Whether you're Haitian or Jamaican, that's irrelevant.
Yep.
We know what it feels like to not have our dad in the house.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we can bond right there and then build,
Yep.
because there's a level of similarities. Like, okay, do
Mm-hmm.
you ever long for your dad? Do you ever think about your dad like that? Because we all do that, like
Mm-hmm.
when our father's not there. So it's like building a relationship that's actually a lot more deep than
Yep.
it is surface level. And then when you get on the field, that person's story, man. You want to
Mm-hmm.
you want to block harder. You want to make sure that person has some level of success. Because other aspects in their life are not as cool. So you want to make sure that your time on the field together, is useful and worthwhile, because when that person goes home, you're concerned now because like, oh, when he gets home, you know, he deals with a whole lot of like family is, has domestic violence and this and that. So for these 2 hours that we're out here on this football field together, I'm gonna make sure that this is the best experience for not only for him but
Mm-hmm.
for me too, because we all have a different set of challenges. When we leave this place where we're surrounded by a coach who cares about us and says every single day before practice even starts, if nobody told you that they love you today, I do.
Mm-hmm.
you know and it's like, because I know the things that they're dealing with, I know the stuff that they go through on a day-to-day basis. I'm not oblivious to that. I grew up in a similar environment. you
Mm-hmm.
know Even though I didn't grow up in Dorchester, Massachusetts, Mattapan isn't that much different from Dorchester, um, at all. So I know the streets that you're talking about. I
Mm-hmm.
know the parks that you're talking about. I know the corner store, the bodegas that you frequent, and all those things like that. So I understand your walk every single day,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm gonna not start practice until I know how everybody is doing.
Yep.
Because
Mm-hmm.
if you're not okay, what
Yep.
am I gonna get out of you out here right now?
Yeah,
Nothing.
exactly.
So it's just a quick check-in. Hey, man, how's everybody doing? I know, you heard about what happened on so-and-so street last night.
Mm-hmm.
Was anybody affected by that? Was anybody impacted by that? Did anybody know that young man? Did anybody, is anybody related to he or she? You know, we need to know these things so that we can provide a level of support for these young people,
Yep.
to deal with these issues of trauma and things like that. So, it all made sense for us to run a team oriented offense because we were actually like a real family team at the end of the day. And people don't understand how close we were
Yep.
together as a unit, you know, because we made time for those things. I wanted them to see me not as your coach, but as your uncle, as your mentor, as your friend, as your big homie, as your whatever, but see me in that way. Don't see me as like this dude who has everything figured out because I don't. I don't
Yep.
have everything figured out. But what I do know, I'm willing to share. But and you guys every day, help me discover new things about myself. You
Yep.
make me want to be better because you want to be better. So as long as you want to be better, I'm going to continue to try to be better myself. And I would tell them when I'm going down to the Naval Academy, yeah, man, I'm going down to Navy, learn some new things, and they appreciated that I wasn't lazy. Like,
Yep.
okay, he's always trying to learn more, which means that, okay, maybe we should learn a little bit more too.
Yep.
Maybe, we should read a little bit more. Maybe we should study a little bit harder. Maybe we should, because coach is doing all these things for us, with little, and he's not asking for anything in return. I mean, we did outside the box things. Like we went to plays together.
Yep.
Like how many football programs do you know are pulling up to the play?
Yeah.
Maybe to the movie theater, the bowling alley, something like that, but not the theater.
Yeah.
like okay, we're gonna sit down and we're gonna watch things that are relevant to your journey. And it was a play about the 13th Amendment,
Right.
and pretty well known. I forget the lady's name. She's really well known in like theater and things like that. But she put together this amazing production. And so we went and they learned about the 13th Amendment and how it affects, their schooling and their education and things like that. So these are the things that you all need to know about because it's not just about football. It's about what you bring to the table as a person because you're going to be a person longer than you're going to be a football player. I said, now I may be known around town for football. I said, but at the same time, people can also say, yeah, but he also does a lot of work with young people. He's in the community. He works for the school system. He does this. He does that. I said, you don't have to be one way. Like there's many, many ways that you can be. And I want them to understand that, like, you're going to be responsible men one day.
Yep.
And this opportunity that you have, and the reason why we bring all these different things to this program is because we're aware of that. Book groups, things like that. Like when my first meeting with the team, I came in, I had a box, and I know that they probably were assuming that like, oh, he's about to give us some like cool T-shirts to set off the season or whatever. Like okay. No, it was a book. It was a box of books. and you should have saw their faces when I started handing these books out. They're looking like, first of all, look at this dude's haircut. Look at the clothes look at the clothes that he's wearing. He doesn't even look like a football coach per se. And now he's talking about giving us books. Way, way different than they probably expected. But the name of the book was by this guy by the name of Jeff Johnson, who I had the privilege of meeting, some years down the road at a conference too. And I told him about how we use this book, blah, 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 whatever.
Yep.
So we used the book and it literally got us on the same page. People always like, oh, we got to be on the same page. Well, how can you get on the same page when you're not really like making people get on the same page? Like the kids don't know what you know as a coach. So it's impossible for them to be on the same page with you. And then if your quarterback changes the play in the huddle, you're mad at him. So clearly you're not on the same page because if you were on the same page, you would have probably called a timeout and called the same play that he changed, that he checked the play to, right?
Yep.
But you're mad now because you gave him a direct order and he has disobeyed, the leader. Come on, man. You got to give kids leadership opportunities, plain and simple, which I think running triple option gave my quarterbacks that leadership capability. They were the decision maker. Yeah, the play came from the sideline, but ultimately Patrick or Elvin or Justin or Sharif or Lewis, those are going to be the people making those decisions, not me. If I call midline, I don't know who's getting the ball.
Yep.
So I'm giving them the opportunity to actually lead and make decisions and be accountable and be responsible for the success and failure of our offensive program that we run, or offensive formation that we run. So it was doing a couple of different things, and just over time, it was just one of those things that we just became known for.
Yep.
Oh, here come those triple option dudes. Yeah, okay. Number one, you don't know the offense. Number two, you only have a few days to practice to defend it.
Yeah.
And three, I already noticed your kids are not going to play. This defensive end is not going to do this thing all game long. He's not tackling the fullback all game long. He's not going to do that.
No.
And I know he's not going to do it. So that's when we catch people.
Yeah.
And then, we have play action passes and stuff. We did. And we were playing a team in the playoffs one time, and we knew that we're playing the Burke, their run-heavy option team. Okay? We can throw the ball to them.
Mm-hmm.
First play of the game was a backside post. Okay? Front side action looked like triple.
Yep.
Our quarterback dropped back. Touchdown. Okay, now we're up 7-0. Okay. It's better to play with the lead when you're a triple team than it is to try to come from behind. So knowing that they were going to be aggressive like that and come up and suck up on the run, they wasn't expecting to pass over the top.
Mm-hmm.
So you just got to be aware of what you're doing. And I learned a lot of things from, like I said, going to Coach Jasper and talking about these things. And when he said he ran 4 plays, man, I was like, I have too many plays now. I got 15. That's way too many. I need to cut it down to like 8. And we were able to do that. Like, okay.
Yep.
It was like 8 reps. Of course, it's really more because if you have 8 plays going right, you theoretically have 16 plays because you go left with those. Mm-hmm. But once you know those 8 plays, going left or right is irrelevant. It's like once we master these, we are good. In some games, we might throw a little wrinkle in there for somebody, but for the most part, no, this is what we do. I don't care if people in the stands are like, throw the ball. No, shut up. You don't know what we're doing. You're not inside this huddle. You're not part of this team. You root for us, but you don't know what our philosophy is really. Mm-hmm. You don't really understand what we're trying to get accomplished. Mm-hmm. So no, Coach, throw the ball. Stop watching NFL football and think that that's supposed to translate to high school, number one. And stop watching college football and think that that's supposed to translate to high school. At high school level is the time to have fun and to do the offense that's best suited for the personnel you have. Mm-hmm. If I had a quarterback that could stand in the pocket and really just like read a defense and really like put that ball places, and we had some receivers that could actually go get it and catch the ball, I would have done that. Because I like watching that. I do. I like watching Texas Tech. I like watching them. I do. I like when I'm watching. I'm like, dang, man, I wish we could do that. But we can't. So I watch it and I say to myself, these are things that we can't do. Then we're such a traditional triple team. Like we were in the wishbone and we flexed it out too. But kids are like, Coach, how come we can't get in the shotgun? And that's not what we do here. No, we're not gonna get in the shotgun and get cute with this. Nope. Because as much as I love, Tim Tebow, as much as I love Brad Smith at Missouri, as much as I loved watching J.T. Barrett at Ohio State, as much as I loved watching Braxton Miller at Ohio State, as much as I like watching Denard Robinson at Michigan, that whole shotgun thing just didn't, it didn't work for me because I'm like, okay, if I'm back 4.5 yards, that gives me an advantage.
Mm-hmm.
It gives me an advantage. I can elongate the read. I can see what's going on, and it's safe. It's safe option football, I call it.
Yep.
When you're under center and you got to come down the line and everybody's right there with you,
Mm-hmm.
it's a different animal.
Yep.
It's a completely different beast. So guys like who run triple, like at Navy, and guys who have quarterback at Army, or guys who play quarterback at Air Force. And I know like sometimes they incorporate some shotgun now, but they have to do that because they're playing against teams that have to do that too.
Yep.
So it's like the same thing, more or less.
Yep.
So it's really one of those things where I'm just a traditional guy when it comes to option football.
Mm-hmm.
No one's gonna change my mind. I coach quarterbacks. We're more of a zone read RPO team,
Mm-hmm.
but the way that I coach our quarterback, I said the same way that you're running zone
Mm-hmm.
and running triple that way, RPO is the same thing.
Yep.
I said that's all it is. I said don't get confused and think that it's something different. And our quarterback this year he was good, man.
Mm-hmm.
He was good. Like he threw for 2,200 yards.
Wow.
And 23 touchdowns, ran for 1,334 yards and 14 more touchdowns. He was just amazing
Yep.
to watch. And I like to think that I had a little hand in that.
Mm-hmm.
But he came prepared. He wanted to be good. He broke the school record for passing yards in a season that was set by the kid who graduated the year before. So we got some milestones. Like we accomplished some things. You know what I mean? He told me that he wanted to break that record. He told me that he wanted to throw for at least 2,000 yards. He said he wanted to run for at least 1,000. I said, cool. Those are all great goals. Now let's go get it done.
Yep.
And lo and behold, we were able to get it done, man. And it's just amazing. Now I'm working with him to get him ready for college. So it's just like one of those relationships that you build with somebody that you didn't know through football. And I think that, my honesty with him, I don't do a whole lot of yelling and screaming as a coach. That's not my way at all. One, I have high blood pressure, and that's not good for my health. So I try to stay as calm as possible, and I try to shield my quarterbacks from the head coach and the offensive coordinators. Sometimes, like okay, he heard you. like if you keep beating him up, he's not going to be mentally prepared to go back in there and do the thing that you're yelling at him about he's not doing.
Mm-hmm.
So let's not yell and scream at the quarterback. I'm not saying that he's above being checked if he did something wrong. No. But the thing about quarterbacks is this. You can if you have a quarterback playing for you and he's a I don't care kind of kid, that's your fault.
Yep.
Okay? Most of the time, the quarterbacks that I've coached, they care. So they already know when they messed up.
Yep.
Like, I don't have to say a word. Like okay, yeah, that's on me. Yeah, I know it is.
Yep.
Now fix it. Because you're better than that. Don't tell me you missed the read. I know you missed the read. Or our running back would still be running. I get it.
Yep.
Next time, give him the ball. I said, here's the thing about option football. You're never wrong if you give the ball to the fullback.
Yep. That's it.
You're never wrong. I'm never gonna be mad about you giving the ball to the fullback. Never.
No.
I'm never going to be mad on a zone read if you give it to the running back. I'm not going to be mad. I'm going to be mad if you pull it and then get a helmet in your chest and we lose 5 or 6 yards because you should have gave the ball up. But if you're not sure on the read,
just give it
to him. Let's not try to pull it and fumble the ball. Let's just give it to him. And then you come and you see, hey, coach, on that last play, I wasn't sure. You're never wrong if you give the ball to the fullback.
Mm-hmm.
Never.
That's it.
Because at least we maintain possession and we have another opportunity. Mm-hmm. Now, you trying to pull the ball and y'all playing tug of war with the ball as you go through the hole, that's not good.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you miss the read, follow the running back.
Yep.
You know, you know where the play's supposed to be run.
Yep.
Get up
Go
in
there.
there and get what you can get. That's it. So it's just like those little things that sometimes young people don't think about.
Mm-hmm.
They don't process that in that way. Like, oh, the ball is being run in this hole. So if I fumble the snap, I need to get up in that hole.
Yep.
Yes, if you fumble the ball, know where the play was called and try to get as much as you can get because the offensive linemen don't know you fumbled.
Mm-hmm. They're still blocking that. They're still trying to make that lane.
Absolutely. So as long as they're trying to make that lane, let me get up in there and get whatever I can get. If it's a
Mm-hmm.
yard, cool. If it's two, cool. Who knows? Sometimes strange things happen. You
Mm-hmm.
break out of there. Next thing you know, you're in the wide open field and it's a touchdown. So
Yep.
it's like knowing the offense and knowing what your responsibility is in the offense is always helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But this whole triple thing, man, is a beautiful thing. I tell everybody I'm a triple option guy through and through.
Yep.
Definitely more a fan of Navy, but I watch triple option teams all the time. If Air Force is on TV, I'm watching them. If
Mm-hmm.
Army's on TV, I'm watching them. If the Citadel happens to be playing a game, I'm watching them. If it's some Division II school somewhere, and they might be just playing on ESPN or something, I'm
Yep.
watching that too. It's like I can't get enough of it, and there's not enough teams in my area in Massachusetts that run it. There's a few teams that do,
Mm-hmm.
and there's only really one team that really did it really, really well, and that's the team out of down towards the Cape in Falmouth.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, they ran it and executed it pretty good,
Mm-hmm.
considering. And watching them play in the state championship, a few years back, was a beautiful thing to watch because I'm watching like, okay, all right, it made me for a minute there like maybe I need to be on staff down in Falmouth, because I got something to add to this. Like, this is my zone right here. You got kids and some athletes that can run it.
Yep.
Man, please let me get on staff at Falmouth and make it happen. But I never reached out or anything like that. But the reality is that I know as long as if there's a team in and around Massachusetts that's running triple option football,
Mm-hmm.
and I know anything about it, I would definitely try to probably you know move on or whatever and be a part of that staff and really be a part of a system that I really appreciate and love. And I don't see
Yep.
anything wrong with that.
No.
But I'm happy where I am.
Mm-hmm.
But and this year I know we're gonna run a lot more, triple and stuff like that because our personnel has changed.
Yep.
So now it's gonna be like, okay, we're gonna be more of a run heavy team than we were last year. Even though we had 2,000-yard rushers,
Yeah.
our quarterback and our running back both went over 1,000, and then our other running back was close to maybe might have had like 700 or something like
Mm-hmm.
that. Our receiver almost had 1,000. So I mean, these are all guys, and one of our receivers will probably be our quarterback this year.
Right.
Because of his athletic ability, and
Mm-hmm.
we need to groom somebody else. In this year because we're going to be in the same situation. Our quarterback last year was a senior; he had 1 year to get it done, and he did a
Mm-hmm.
phenomenal job. But these guys coming behind him, skill sets different.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is altogether different. So, we want to play to the strength of the kids we have. And
Yep.
so I believe that the kids we have, definitely can be more suited for the run game. And, throw the ball when we need to, quick game stuff, though. Nothing that they got to stretch their capability. We don't
Yeah.
want somebody trying to throw posts when, that's not your lane. We'll stay with hitch and out.
Yeah.
Comebacks. Drag, dig.
Yeah.
But we're not gonna ask you to like go deep down the
Yeah.
middle of the field. That's not your game, man. Okay, so we'd be
Yeah.
doing ourselves a disservice if we did that. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy to just know that we're gonna be doing more
Mm.
option game this year because that's right up my alley, and I feel like I can actually really help quarterbacks from that perspective because I ran the offense. I understand what it is and what it isn't, and if you run it correctly, you have a really good time playing
Mm-hmm.
football. You
Yep.
have a really good time playing football. And I think that any quarterback that has played for me over the years, I think that they would say similar.
Mm-hmm.
That it was fun.
Yep.
Not fun because Coach Beaman coached me hard because he played the position too and he expected a lot of me.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, I had fun, and I was walking into the end zone untouched most of the
Yep.
time. so,
That's it.
so it's like one of those. So it's like it's really been fun
Mm-hmm.
doing this thing,
For
and
sure.
we don't have a lot of time to practice. So the more simple things can be,
Mm-hmm.
the better we're going to be able to execute it. Like if you have few plays, you're at practice, you're not stressing yourself out.
Yep.
Because we know that, okay, say if it's you know a half, say if it's an hour and a half into practice, and say a monsoon comes down, right, and we got to stop practice and get off the field. Well, we've already ran what we needed to run, so it's
Yep.
not like we're missing this half hour of practice on the
Yep.
back end to do all these things,
Mm-hmm.
because like I said, we go from like it was hard for us to do positions like as far as like individual periods and things like that because we just didn't have the staff to do that.
Yep.
So we did a lot of group stuff. Like I would take the running backs, quarterbacks, and receivers with me,
Mm-hmm.
and my
Mm-hmm.
coach would take the offensive line. Because I
Yep.
had this one assistant coach. So he took the line, I took the backfield, and we
Mm-hmm.
worked it like that. Okay, what I need you to coach up today is inside veer.
Yeah.
Okay, these guys are learning inside veer with me. You
Mm-hmm.
know, the period was a little bit stretched out because of everybody that needed to be taught certain things,
Mm-hmm.
but it worked best for us that way.
Yep.
And then that particular grouping understood what their responsibilities were as a group,
Yep.
And so when we get with the offensive line, we got to stay tight and remember what we do on inside veer. That's all we got to do, and
Mm-hmm.
we're
Yep.
good, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And we rep that out, rep that out, rep that out, at practice. Outside veer, same thing, and it became, monotonous at times, but at the same time, the execution of it got
Mm-hmm.
better,
Yep.
got better, got better. More repetitions, the execution just got better, and it was a lot of fun for the kids. So
Mm.
it was beautiful.
Absolutely. So a lot of option teams are known for having a small playbook. To
Mm-hmm.
execute those option plays because they're three plays in one, right? So, and remember the Titans has Denzel has
Mm-hmm.
that famous quote. I run 6 plays is like Novocaine. Just give it time, it'll
Right.
work. What would you say are your core plays? Your core 4 to 5 plays then running the
Um,
triple.
Midline, definitely. Counter option,
Mm-hmm.
definitely a staple in our offense. Off of midline,
Mm-hmm.
because once that midline is working, and you come backside with counter option, it's like, ooh, oh, I didn't know you were doing that.
Yep.
And it's not but grass out there. You're like everybody's sucked up on a thing, and your quarterback turns the corner and there's nobody there. That kind of stuff. So counter option, midline. I like inside and outside veer definitely, but a lot of double option too.
Yep.
Because once you establish that stuff, double option becomes fun too. So that's basically my basics philosophy is like midline and off of that counter option
Yep.
because I had great athletes at quarterback, so why not take advantage of their skills and their ability to attack backside,
Yep.
with a front side fake.
Yep.
so,
Yep. Absolutely.
you know, so
Um,
definitely.
all right. So then, uh, at some point, option teams do have to throw the ball. What would you say is your favorite or go-to play action pass?
Oh, my favorite go-to play action pass is backside wheel.
Okay.
I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people say it's wrong to throw the ball back across the other side of the field, but people fall asleep on the back side of the field and they forget to cover the running back.
Yep.
Because if you come in front side option and you send your right halfback down the sideline the other way,
Mm-hmm.
right? people forget about him, and then your quarterback just stops. And so, because that's a play we ran in college, and we used to kill people with it. So I
Right.
kept that.
Yeah.
Backside wheel, man.
Yeah.
Backside
Nice.
wheel.
Nice.
Front side action, backside wheel.
Cool.
Killer.
It sounds it. You get, especially because they're the athletes too, right? So you get them wide open or with a head of steam, and it's game over.
Because once the flow starts going left, everybody goes left. They forget about the running back coming out the backside, or they're like, "Oh, he's not doing anything because that's just a decoy." Okay, don't
Yep.
cover
him. That's it. That's it. All right. So, do you consider yourself primarily out of a wishbone or the flex bone, or what would you say is your primary formation?
I love the flex bone because it gives us more options in terms of the passing game. Because like anytime you really have four receivers, really, which is just like having four wide, because you have to respect the fact that these two halfbacks are eligible pass receivers. So you have to show your hand. When you flex it out, people have to show what they're gonna do. When you're in the bone, they can pack it in a little bit more. But when you flex it out, they're like, oh shoot, okay. We're a little vulnerable now. So I definitely love the flex, but I'm not afraid to get into the bone and make it work either.
Nice. So then, what is the style of offensive lineman you're looking for to make the option game work?
I'm looking for guys who can get off the ball and get to the second level. Like I said, you don't have to be an imposing blocker, because a lot of it is cut blocking. And in high school in Massachusetts, we were allowed to cut. I don't think you can anymore. I think they made that rule different because now we went to federation rules as opposed to NCAA rules. And now you can't, cut downfield and do those kinds of things. So, I had a lot of guys who grew up playing multiple sports. Most of them played basketball. A lot of them played baseball. So I was able to explain football through baseball analogies. I was able to teach football through basketball analogies. So that helped us a lot too. Explaining what a pick or a screen is. Like, okay, how you set a screen in basketball? They're like, yeah, okay. That same kind of idea, except all I need you to do is just get there and get in the way. That's all. If you can't get this guy on the ground, just get in his way, slow him down long enough so that our fullback can hit the crease and do his thing. That's it. That's all I need you to do. And so it was a lot of buy-in that way. But I turned guys who weren't big people into really productive offensive linemen.
Yep.
Like I had guys that if you looked at them without their pads on, you'd be like, "You played center today?" Yeah. He sure did. So it's that kind of thing. So we dealt with what we had to deal with, but we never had to ideal anything. The only ideal positions that were filled was our backfield, from quarterback to fullback to halfback. We always had ideal people there, but then kind of a mix and match up front and out wide. So like our four people in the backfield made it work for us primarily, and the line did what they had to do to run interference and help us, open up lanes and stuff like that. But it's not hard to do that when you're operating with 2.5, 3 foot splits.
Yes.
It's like we're inviting you in.
You just gotta use momentum.
Oh yeah, like hey, wow, that's a big gap right there. I wonder what's gonna. Oh, there it comes. So It was good. Where that was all to help us, like create angles and things like that. So yeah, we never had the ideal, I would say, triple option lineman per se, but we had kids who were aggressive and weren't punks. Like they weren't soft dudes. Not at all. They were the type that would fight anybody, anywhere, anytime. So all right, I like that attitude. I can work with that. So so that's what we did.
Awesome. All right. Well, final question, and and then we'll let you go. And thank you for giving up your time. But
Oh, no problem.
so the cast is called Fourth and Goal.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a question we ask everybody, and you can sort of see where it's headed. It's fourth and goal on the 5-yard line. State championship game, you're down by 4. Need a touchdown. I think I know what you're going to call, but what are you calling?
We're going midline right here. Oh yeah.
What formation?
We're going to flex it. To keep you honest and spread out. Especially that close to the goal line. Like we wouldn't want to go full. We wouldn't want to go into the bone because then, it's not creating the space that we need. But yes, definitely, we're going midline. And that's that. No doubt about it. Midline or possibly follow.
Yep.
And it would be one of those plays, definitely, for sure. Because I'm not trying to get cute on the edge or anything like that. No.
Yeah.
No.
Absolutely. Well, thank you again for your time. It's been fun. Absolutely.
Thanks for having me.
It's always great fun. Always great fun talking option and football in general. So thank you for jumping on and giving up your time for everyone.
Oh, hey, no problem, man. And definitely keep reaching out to the folks down at Navy. Coach Jasper's a really good dude. He's not necessarily one that does a whole lot of social media stuff and things like that. So he's not the guy that's going to be on Twitter, doing this or that. Maybe every once in a while, because, I never even see it, on Twitter at all, and that's just kind of who he is. Mm-hmm. But if, you're ever in the States and you are, heading towards Annapolis for any reason, as long as it's not in the middle of their season or whatever like that.
Yep.
So he's always willing to talk and chat and do those things, man. So, and also, if you want another good person is, and I know you can reach him on social media, is at 3 Phase Football. He does Mesh Point every Monday.
Yep.
So Coach is a real good dude, man. Really brings the triple guys together a lot, and I think I think Flexbone Chat, they have one too that they do. So I mean, there's triple guys around,
Yep.
And I didn't realize how many people are still running it until I get in, on those sessions. I'm like, yeah, it's like okay. I'm not alone. There's people, there's still people out here wanting to do this thing, man.
Yeah.
And it's been beautiful for me, and to meet these guys, and or when you post something about triple, you have a bunch of guys chiming in on it. I don't know if you've been following the thread on Twitter. I said, who is your favorite, option quarterback? You only get one choice, right? You only get one, and you can't explain why you chose them. Just give it to me. And this thing has been going on for 2 days now. With the consensus being Tommy Frazier from Nebraska, is everybody seems to be a Frazier fan, and you know what? And Tommy Frazier was a beast. He was nasty. You can't argue with back-to-back national championships.
No.
You really can't. You really can't argue with that. And then coming back from a blood clot, and for him to be the player that he was, and even Brooke Behringer, who came in and played solid until Tommy was able to get back.
Yep.
It was those kinds of things like that. But my all-time favorite triple option quarterback is Scott Frost.
Oh.
From Nebraska. Oh
yeah.
Frost reminded me a lot of myself playing.
Mm-hmm.
Not that I was ever 225 pounds, because I was never that big. I was 195 pounds when camp started and 185 by the time it ended. So I was never the biggest guy, 190 tops.
Yep.
Right? But just his physical style of play, added an element. I mean, he was fast, he was big, he was strong. He could throw the ball decent enough. Mm-hmm. And just a real physical, a runner. I like to see people run physically from the quarterback position. I don't like that little, cute stuff all the time. It's like let's play football. We're football players at the end of the day.
Yep.
That's why it bothers me when I see a lot of quarterbacks being trained and all you see is them throwing the ball, throwing the ball, throwing the ball. Hell, I know he can throw the ball. He plays quarterback. Does he have the mental toughness to stand in the pocket and do the same thing that he's doing on air right now? Like, it's cute. There's no pressure. Mm-hmm. Wow, he completed a post. Ooh, great for him. That's something he could do in his backyard. What is he paying you for? What is he paying you to train him as a quarterback coach if all you're doing is having him throw the ball and do all this stuff like that? Yep. My training is different. Mm-hmm. It's completely different. It's unorthodox. It's a lot of old school methods. It's a lot of stuff that from the gritty and grimy days of football. Mm-hmm. Like, I have my quarterbacks bear crawl.
Oh, wow.
Because they don't want to. That's why you're doing it, because I know you don't want to do it. Mm-hmm. Crab crawl, because I know you don't want to do it. Duck walk, because I know you don't want to do it. They duck walk through a series of cones. Then there's a point in time where they're doing option pitches out of a duck walk. Okay, we need to get your legs strong. Yep. In the absence of weights, all we have is our body weight. Mm-hmm. That's it.
Yep.
So if we can build up some stamina in your legs, you can stand and deliver. But if you can't mentally tune out pain or mentally tune out, then you can't play quarterback. You can't do it.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, you're a football player who plays quarterback. You're not a quarterback. People are like, what position you play? I play quarterback. Yeah, okay, you play quarterback, but you're not a quarterback. Yep. You play quarterback, but if I need you to play guard, you should be able to do that too.
Yes.
Not that I would ever do that, but you should understand football from a football playing perspective, not like these positions. Well, I play cover corner. What do you mean? Don't you have to make tackles too? What do you mean you play cover corner?
Yeah.
What if I'm not throwing the ball? What are you playing then?
Bench.
Oh, you still trying to cover people? Yeah. I hope so. Because here we come. We're coming around the corner. And you know what? We getting downhill, shoulders square. And you know what? You better make a decision. Mm-hmm. We're coming. We're coming. Not once, not twice, but every time. So
exactly.
I hope people are ready. So that's what it is to me. But, physicality from the quarterback position is always a plus. Mm-hmm. I don't like soft stuff at all. Not at all. Our quarterback last year, I'm like, listen, run away from linemen, run away from linebackers. Mm-hmm. We run through safeties and cornerbacks.
Absolutely.
Plain and simple. That's what we do.
Yes, it is. Well, thank you again. Thank you again for jumping on, giving up your time. It's been a blast, and I look forward to seeing some more clips on Twitter and of some option ball coming out.
Oh yeah, we'll I think I might have posted one today of one of our fullbacks. Took it like 65 yards against the same team that he took it like 70 yards on the year before. And that game happened to be on TV as well. So we played the same team on TV 2 years in a row. And 2 years in a row, he had one year he had a 70-yard run. The next year was a 65-yard run. Same play.
Nice.
Same play. Same play. One of the 12 to 15 that we run. That's it. I'm not trying to reinvent the wheel. You stop it. Until you stop it, we're gonna keep on coming.
That's it.
That's it. And the new thing is gonna be, hurry up, kind of no huddle, triple option football. That's next.
Yep.
That's coming next. No need for us to huddle.
No.
On the same play.
That's it.
Same play. You start yelling out 12, 12, 12. Nobody knows what 12 is. Mm-hmm. We do. They don't.
Yep.
13, 13. What are y'all doing? Oh, don't worry about what we're doing. Don't worry about it. As long as they know the play, we good. Same formation. We don't need to change nothing. So it's coming. I think that's the next level for triple option teams is like no huddle, just like, spread teams run no huddle, Because if you don't give a defense a chance to set up, and you're running triple option football, you're just right on the ball, ready to go.
That's it. It's over.
Wow. Yeah, it's over. So I'm looking forward to that. So
absolutely,
that's the next level. So Army, Navy, Air Force, if you hear this podcast, that's the next level right there. Somebody figure it out, and then I'll come to your coaching clinic and learn it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
But thanks for having me, man.
No
this
problems.
was good. I've been doing a lot of other kind of talking with coaches and stuff about all the unrest and things that's going like that. So it was cool to just have like kind of a football conversation in between all of the heavy duty stuff.
That's it.
So this was a lot of fun, man. This was a lot of fun. As a matter of fact, I got another podcast at 8:00 where I'm talking about heavy duty stuff. So, I have about 20 minutes to get some water, and do all that stuff, and then get right back on this thing. So thanks, man. This was a lot of fun. I didn't know what it was gonna be like per se, but it ended up being exactly what I needed and what I hoped that it would be. Just a conversation about triple option football. Not a whole lot of technical stuff, but just talking about the game. Which was cool.
Exactly.
In a freestyle kind of way. So so that was good, man. I needed that for my soul today. After dealing with some heavy duty stuff earlier today, I was like, I need to decompress. I need to, So this provided the perfect platform. So going into this 8:00 session where it's more heavier, it's heavy things, I'm ready for it. I wouldn't have been ready earlier.
No,
so this is great intervention. So I appreciate you for having me on, man. Really do.
No problems. Appreciate you giving up your time. It was great fun. So thank you.
And you know what? Get me your address when I get my Option QB Academy T-shirts and stuff. I'll send you one.
Oh, sweet.
Oh yeah.
Definitely. That sounds good.
I got a friend of mine working on the design now and things like that. So once they get printed up, definitely send one your way. And I'm gonna get sweatshirts too. So make sure you tell me if your size, whatever your size is, let me know.
Yeah,
and I'll definitely send you one because it's really for optics for people. You know what I mean? Because the kids will wear it, other people will ask like, "Well, what's that?" Okay. It's not like I am trying to train quarterbacks full time because I have a job that I love doing, and this is just something that I can do. So why not do it, and why not make it affordable for kids, man? Like $20 a session is like cheap. That's like paying for my gas to get back and forth to wherever you are. You know what I mean? Like I'm not trying to get rich off of coaching quarterbacks.
No.
I have 3 times during the week that I can do it. And I tell them Tuesday and Thursday, 5:30 in Lynn, Massachusetts, or 11 o'clock on Sunday mornings in Boston. That's it. And I told the young man, I was like, listen, if you can find another quarterback, since you can't make it at 11, if you can find another quarterback or 2 that wants to go at 1:30 with you, then I will stay after my 11 o'clock session, which ends at 1 anyway. And just chill out for a half an hour and wait for you. Then it's worth my while. If not, you got to try to get here at 11 or get to Lynn at 5:30 on Tuesday and Thursday. And I don't want you to have to do that coming from Boston if I'm already going to be in Boston. So I'm trying to help you out. So it's just really, I just want to help, kids, man, because development as a quarterback is key, is essential. You have to have it. It's not like every other position. It's like you have to drill. You have to do these things. You have to get out there against live defensive coverage. You have to do pass skelly. You can't just expect, to show up at 7-on-7 and like be able to read things. Like you need practice doing that. So, we have something set up on Saturday just for that with the group of young people. So, because I also coach 7-on-7 too.
Right.
We have a 7-on-7 program called Mass Exposure. It was Mass Elite before that, but we have some kids, man.
Nice.
We have some kids. We got some kids in some places, man. The current tight end at Duke University, Noah Gray, he played with us. Sean McCune, who played tight end at Michigan. He was
Yep.
one of our kids.
Wow.
Ippy Malinafu, who plays defensive back at Syracuse. His brother is Obi Malinafu, who plays with the Patriots now, who was
Yep.
with the Raiders before. His little brother is Iffy. He's at Syracuse. He played with us. Austin Burton, who went to UCLA first, is now transferring to Purdue and has an opportunity to play at Purdue right away.
Yeah.
Parker McQuarrie, a young man out of New Hampshire who's going to UCLA this year. Brady Martin, who's going to University of Rhode Island, who was set to go to UMass Amherst, but some things happened, unsavory things with the coaching staff, so he decided to go to URI, which offered him a scholarship when he was in 9th grade.
Wow.
So we have some studs, man. And the current backup quarterback at Penn State, Will Levis, is another guy that we helped get on the map as well. And this guy Patrick Conti, who's a backup quarterback at Yale. So we've done some things, man. We've got kids in place. We got kids at Princeton University. We've done some good work. My man Will Kroom. If you can follow him on Twitter too,
Yeah, for sure.
Coach Will Kroom. That's my guy, and that's who we're doing this thing with on Saturday. And there's a young man from Massachusetts who actually has an offer from Navy right now.
That's good.
He's a quarterback out of Everett High School, and he played with our 7-on-7 program too. His name is Duke Dory.
Okay.
I don't know if he's gonna decide to go to Navy or not, but clearly, I think it would be a great fit for him because Duke's a football player.
Yeah.
Like, he's the kind of dude that I would love playing quarterback for me. Like, and I tell him that all the time. I'm like, man, you're a football player, and I love that because you're not stuck on this position thing. And like, we play 7-on-7. If there's another kid playing quarterback, he's like, Coach, I can play receiver. Coach, I can play running back. Coach, I can go play defensive back if you need me to. That's what I like. Not the guy that's like, oh, I only play quarterback. Okay. I like a guy who's like, I'm a football player who plays quarterback.
Yes.
That's how I felt. So
Brilliant.
But thanks again, man.
No problems.
And, thanks again. Appreciate it. And
if you guys like this kind of content, be sure to give it a like, share, comment, subscribe.